10 English towns still sell 3-bedroom homes for less than a home county's deposit. One of them, Bishop Auckland in County Durham, has a median price around £110,000. That's the extreme end of a run of towns stretching from County Durham down through the Midlands to Norfolk and the Welsh border. Every one of them is peaceful and real, with one honest reason why almost nobody's retired there yet. Some got that price through decades of decline, some through nothing more than bad luck on the marketing map, and by the end, you'll know which is which. Barnard Castle sits on the River Tees, a stone market town with the ruined castle that gave the place its name looking down over the water. Inside the same town is the Beaux Museum, a building that looks like it was airlifted in from the French countryside, a proper chateau of a place, packed with art, sitting quietly in a corner of County Durham most people couldn't point to on a map. Here's the honest part on price, because different sites disagree by a wide margin. Ask 4 property portals what a house costs here, and you'll get 4 answers, from around £213,000 on the low end to almost £380,000 on the high end. Most sit closer to £246,000, which is still a fraction of what the same money buys in the southeast. That range makes more sense once you look at the county Barnard Castle sits in. Across County Durham as a whole, the average home costs around £139,000. Detached houses average £238,000. Semi-detached homes come in at £140,000, terraced houses at £115,000, and flats at just £77,000. The catch here isn't the town itself, it's what those low county numbers usually mean. Cheap housing across a whole county rarely happens by accident. It's usually the tail end of a minning and heavy industry economy that never fully replaced the jobs it lost. And Barnard Castle sits inside that story, even though the town itself looks nothing like decline. It looks like the Dales sit right outside the door, because they really do. And that's the trade you're making here. Real countryside, a genuine market town, and a county-wide price built on a harder history than the postcards let on. Put that £246,000 next to a 1-bed flat deposit in a lot of southern cities, and it barely moves the needle by comparison. And here it buys a whole house with a Castle VIW thrown in. County Durham also has the basics this audience actually cares about: a GP surgery and NHS services within reach, a working high street, none of the flash, all of the function. The Dales sit right outside Barnard Castle's door too, which matters for anyone picturing a retirement built around walking rather than driving everywhere. That's the case for Barnard Castle as the opener. It's not the cheapest entry on this list, not even close, but it's proof the whole premise of this video is real before we get anywhere near the extreme end of it. Number 2, Bishop Auckland, also in County Durham. This is the thesis of the whole video, the number that makes the rest of the list make sense. The median house price in Bishop Auckland sits around £110,000. Detached homes average about £238,000, in line with the county figure, but flats and smaller homes go for a fraction of that, which drags the median down to a number that sounds more like a car than a house. Say that again slowly. £110,000 for a median home in England in 2026. That's less than half what you'd need just to put down a deposit on an ordinary flat in London. Now the honest part, because Bishop Auckland earns it more than any other town on this list, it's this sea-hape partly because of real decline, the kind that followed the pit's closing and never fully got replaced. That's not spin, that's the reason the number is what it is. But here's what's changing. The Auckland project has spent real money rebuilding the town centre around the old Bishop's Palace, which is now open to the public in a way it never used to be. The Spanish Gallery sits nearby, a purpose-built home for a private collection of Spanish art that has no business being in a former coalfield town and is there anyway. Every summer, thousands of people drive in for Kinran, an outdoor live show telling England's history through the town's own fields, now in its second decade of selling out. none of that undoes the reason Bishop Auckland is cheap. It does mean the town isn't standing still while it's cheap, which is a different story than most places at this price point tell. Think about what that median actually buys. £110,000 is roughly the cost of a decent new car and a small extension, not a house, anywhere in the southeast. Here it's a full home, council tax and all, with change left over from selling an average semi almost anywhere else in the country. That's the number this whole video is built around. Keep it in your head. Nothing else on this list gets close to it, and every other town from here has to be measured against it. Number 3, Saltburn-by-the-Sea, on the North Yorkshire and Teesside coast. An hour or so from Bishop Auckland, the same county touches the sea, and the town changes character completely. Saltburn is Victorian through and through, built on the edge of the North York moors, with a cliff tramway still hauling people down to the beach and a working pier stretching out over the water. There is also a surf break that draws people who would never normally look at this stretch of coast, and a farmer's market that sets up once a month in the town centre. Homes here sell for around £245,000, a step up from the inland towns on this list, but still modest for a seaside address with a view like this one. On the safety side, the most recent monthly crime figures for Saltburn put the town at just over 4 recorded crimes per 1,000 people, a quiet number for anywhere in England. Here is the honest catch. Saltburn is not a secret. Retirees have known about this town for years, so if you are picturing yourself as the first person to discover it, you will not be. What you are getting instead is a town that has already proven itself peaceful and pleasant, without the price tag of somewhere like Whitby or the Yorkshire coast further south. Overlooked nationally is not the same as undiscovered locally, and Saltburn is squarely the first kind. There is a practical upside worth naming too. Saltburn sits close enough to Middlesbrough and the wider Teesside towns that a bigger hospital and a proper high street are a short trip away, not a day out. That matters once you are weighing a seaside move against what happens the day you actually need a specialist appointment. You are not trading peace and quiet for total isolation here. You are trading it for a short drive along the coast road, which is a much easier trade to live with. Number 4, Leek in Staffordshire. From the coast, the list moves inland and south into the Midlands and the edge of the Peak District. Leek is a proper market town, with a market running 3 times a week and a walkable centre that backs straight onto open moorland. Homes here average around £212,800, one of the more affordable options in this part of the country, and the town has its own local healthcare and home care services, which matters more the older you get. Zoom out to the wider district, Staffordshire moorlands, and the average home costs around £226,000. Detached houses average £334,000, semi-detached homes £223,000, terraced houses £165,000, and flats £112,000. The honest part here is that Leek isn't the cheapest town on this list, not by a long way. Staffordshire Moorlands runs meaningfully pricier than County Durham as a whole, so what you're buying in Leek isn't rock-bottom affordability. It's affordability with the Peak District on your doorstep and services already in town, which is a different trade than Bishop Auckland's, and for some people, a better one. Picture what that actually looks like day to day. A short walk from the market gets you to the moors, no car needed for the view, and a short walk the other way gets you to the same GP surgery and chemist you'd rely on in any bigger town. That combination, countryside on foot and healthcare on foot, is rarer than it should be, and it's the real reason Leek earns its spot on this list, even without the rock-bottom price tag some of the other towns carry. Next on the list is a market town with a surprise of its own, one that shouldn't be this affordable given everything it has going for it. Number 5. Newark-on-Trent in Nottinghamshire. Newark is built around a cobbled market square with a ruined castle at one edge of it, the same castle where King John died in 1216. It's also got something none of the first 4 towns on this list have, a direct train into London. The average property price here sits around £233,000, which is the genuinely estrange part of this entry. Towns with a fast, direct line into the capital almost always carry a premium for it. Newark doesn't, or at least not much of one, especially set against what direct line towns closer to London routinely charge. That leaves an honest question hanging over this entry rather than an honest catch. A well-connected market town with a castle and a cobbled square should cost more than this, by most of the usual logic. Nothing in the research turns up an obvious flaw to explain the gap away. No derelict industrial estate, no crime spike, no missing amenity. Sometimes a town is simply better connected and more affordable than the market logic says it should be, and Newark, on the numbers available, looks like exactly that. Newark still rewards a bit of Cutian though. A castle and a market square photograph well, but they don't tell you anything about waiting lists at the local surgery or how busy that train gets on a Friday afternoon. Treat this one as a genuine opportunity rather than a hidden problem, and do your own homework on commute times, train frequency, and local services before you bank on it. The number alone is the strongest argument on this list for looking somewhere nobody's telling you to look. Number 6, Louth in Lincolnshire. Estate agents call Louth the capital of the Lincolnshire Wolds, a Georgian market town built around independent shops and the tallest medieval parish church spire in England. The average property price here is around £230,000. Break it down by type, and terraced homes average around £156,000, semi-detached homes about £213,500, and detached houses run to roughly £323,500. That figure has actually come down recently. Prices in Louth sit about 4% below where they were a year ago, and 4% below the peak the town hit back in 2023. That makes this one of the few entries on this list where the trend line is moving in the BYR's favour rather than just holding steady. The honest catch is transport. Louth sits out in the Wolds, and some of the villages around it have limited public transport, so a car stops being optional here the way it might be in a bigger market town. If you can drive, or you're planning to keep driving well into retirement, that's a minor point. If you can't, it's worth weighing seriously before you commit to this one. The town itself doesn't feel remote once you're standing in it. The market square is full most days. The shops are independent rather than the same 5 chains every high street has, and that spire is something to see up close, tall enough that it dominates the whole skyline for miles around. It's the villages further out in the Wolds where the transport question really bites, not Louth itself. So the honest catch depends on how far out from the town centre you're planning to actually settle. If you've made it this far, consider hitting like and subscribing, because the second half of this list has the biggest price correction of the whole video still coming. On to the second half. Number 7, Leominster in Herefordshire. Leominster sits in the Welsh Marches, a black and white timbered market town known for its antiques trade and a pace of life that does not hurry for anyone. The average property price in the town itself is around £234,880, with terraced homes averaging closer to £184,000. Worth being precise here, because the postcode area around Leominster prices out much higher than the town does, into the 300,000s, simply because that postcode stretches out into pricier surrounding villages. The town figure is the one that matters, and it sits well below Herefordshire's county average of around £280,000. The honest catch is remoteness. This is deep border country, peaceful in the way that only happens when a place is properly out of the way, and that cuts both directions. The big cities are a real drive from here, not a quick one. So before you picture yourself pottering around Leominster's antiques shops every weekend, picture the round trip to the nearest hospital with a full range of services too. Both pictures are true at once, and that's the trade this town is asking you to make. Walk the town centre and the timber framing is not a gimmick, black beams and white plaster on building after building. A streetscape that took centuries to accumulate and cannot be built new anywhere. That's rare, and it's part of why the antiques trade settled here in the first place. Dealers and collectors drawn to a town that already looks like the thing they're selling. It's a slow kind of peaceful, and for the right person, that's precisely the appeal. The border keeps running south from here, and the next town proves this affordability pattern is not a one-off. Number 8, Oswestry in Shropshire. Oswestry sits right on the Welsh border, a friendly market town with an Iron Age hill fort rising above it on the edge of town. Depending which source you check, the average price here runs from around £225,000 up toward £251,000, with the county's own figures for early 2026 landing closer to £244,000. Whichever number you trust most, Oswestry sits under Shropshire's county average of around £280,000. That gap is the same story Leominster just told about Herefordshire. Shropshire's headline average gets pulled up by its shorer spots, Shrewsbury and Ludlow especially, and a quieter market town on the edge of the county gets left out of that number even though it's inside the same county line. 2 entries in a row now proving the same pattern. Check the town's own number instead of the county average, because the county average is often somebody else's postcode doing the talking. The honest catch is that Oswestry, like Leominster, is under-visited towns. Under-visited towns don't always have the same density of services that a bigger market town does. It's quiet and characterful, but do the legwork on what's actually available locally before you assume a small border town has everything a bigger town would. The hill fort itself is worth the mention on its own. It's an Iron Age site, earthworks still visible from town, sitting there since long before anyone was pricing houses in pounds sterling. And it's the kind of backdrop that makes an ordinary Tuesday walk feel like something else. That's the intangible half of Oswestry's case, alongside the very tangible fact that it's cheaper than the county it sits in. From the Welsh border, the list jumps clean across the width of England to a coastline with almost the same story to tell. Number 9, King's Lynn in Norfolk. King's Lynn is a proper historic port, one of England's old Hanseatic trading towns, with medieval and Georgian quays still lining the water, merchants' houses, and cobbled lanes running back from the river. In the town itself, the average property price sits around £222,000. Step back to the wider district, King's Lynn and West Norfolk, and the official average climbs to around £267,000, a meaningfully higher number than the town itself. That gap is the whole story of this entry. The district average gets dragged up by the pricier stretch of North Norfolk nearby, places like Burnham Market and Wells, the sort of towns that turn up in glossy weekend features. King's Lynn sits in the shadow of those postcodes, and that shadow is exactly what keeps its own price down. The honest catch is that the same overshadowing that makes King's Lynn affordable also means it gets skipped by people chasing the more photographed parts of Norfolk. That's not a flaw in the town, it's a flaw in where people happen to be looking, and King's Lynn's AC2L streets, quays, and history don't come with an asterisk just because Burnham Market gets more attention. If you're comfortable being the one who found the real thing while everyone else queues up the coast, this is the entry for you. Walk the quayside, and it's obvious this was once one of England's busiest ports, trading with the same Hanseatic network that ran across Northern Europe centuries before Norfolk was a holiday brand. That history is still standing, in stone, not recreated for visitors. For a town this affordable to also carry that kind of weight is unusual, and it's a big part of why King's Lynn earned a place on this list over other Norfolk towns that cost more for less history. One more stop left on the other coast, with the biggest story on this entire list. Number 10, Morecambe in Lancashire. Morecambe is a seaside resort that had a hard few decades and is now, by every measure available, on the way back. The restored Art Deco Midland Hotel sits on the front, all curved white concrete and 1930s glamour brought back from a state of real disrepair. Eric Morecambe's statue looks out over the bay, And on a clear evening, the sunset across the water to the Lake District is the kind of view that doesn't need any exaggeration. On price, here's a correctian worth being upfront about. You'll sometimes see a figure as low as £150,000 attached to Morecambe, but that number doesn't hold up against current data. Across the main property portals, averages cluster between around £193,000 and £215,000, so call it roughly TWO £100,000 for a fair, current figure. Still well under Lancashire's own county average of about £219,000, but not the extreme bargain the lower number suggested. Now the Shonish catch, and it's the same one that's shown up before on this list. Morecambe got this cheap through real decline, decades of a resort town losing the tourists it used to rely on. That part isn't in dispute. Here's what's different about Morecambe's version of the comeback story though. Eden Project Morecambe, previously known as Eden Project North, isn't a proposal anymore. It's a £100 million regeneration and climate education project on the seafront, backed by £50 million of UK government investment, and construction actually started in June this year. The plan is to open in late 2028, with forecasts of up to 740,000 visitors a year once it does. That's the difference between Morecambe and some of the other regeneration stories that get talked up in property marketing. This one has diggers on the ground right now, a funded budget, and an opening date on the calendar well past the rendering and press release stage most regeneration stories never leave. There's still a fair question about healthcare and services in a town this size, the same question worth asking of every seaside resort on a comeback. Don't take the regeneration story as a reason to skip your own checks on what's actually available locally today versus what's promised for 2028. Morecambe Bay itself is worth pausing on too, wide enough that the tide goes out for miles and comes back fast. The Lake District fells sit on the horizon the whole time, a proper VRW that costs nothing extra whichever house you end up buying. As a clossing entry, Morecambe makes the whole video's point better than any other town on it. 10 towns, running the length of England, from a market town on the River Tees to a seafront that's rebuilding itself in real time. Some cheap because history moved on, some cheap because the map moved the money elsewhere, and every one of them cheap for a reason you now actually know. That is 10 towns and 10 different reasons, from £110,000 in County Durham to nearly £280,000 on the Welsh border. Tell me in the comments which one you would actually pack a van for and which one surprised you most. Some of these places are cheap because they gave up. Some are cheap because nobody has looked yet. Only one way to find out which is